A millionaire pretended to have an incurable disease. No one showed up to care for him in his darkest days. But when his childhood love walked through the gate, what began as a lie became the greatest miracle of his life. Chapter 1. The loneliness at the top. The immaculate corridors of the Horizon Medical Center reflected the luxury that August Sinclair had built over 2 decades of relentless dedication. The Italian marble floors echoed his footsteps as he walked down the main hallway of the 20th floor where his office was located. It was the end of another productive day for the medical empire he had built since he was 30 years old in Denver, one of the largest networks of hospitals and clinics in the United States. Upon entering his panoramic office, August watched the city transform with the sunset. From there, he could see both the downtown skyscrapers and the distant mountains that embraced the Colorado capital. He was at the top. At 52, he had accumulated everything a man could desire: fortune, respect, influence. His name was mentioned with reverence in business meetings, his hospital management methods were studied in universities, and his presence was requested at gala events. He dropped his Italian leather briefcase onto the rosewood desk and loosened his tie. On his phone, dozens of notifications. Messages from partners, invitations to events, meeting reminders. Congratulations on the anniversary of his clinic network. August swiped his finger across the screen with no real interest in any of them. Dr. Sinclair, I've brought the documents for you to sign before your dinner with the investors. Claudia, his secretary for 15 years, entered with a folder of documents and a cup of coffee. Always efficient, always distant enough to keep the relationship strictly professional. August thanked her with a nod and signed the papers without reading them. He trusted her, just as he trusted his entire team, professionally. "Would you like me to confirm your attendance at the dinner?" she asked, collecting the papers. "Yes, I'll be there." When she left, August poured himself some whiskey from the crystal decanter he kept on a sideboard. He glanced at his watch. He still had an hour until the dinner with the international investors interested in expanding the network to the southeast. A dinner where he would once again be August Sinclair, the visionary businessman, the discreet philanthropist, the impeccable administrator. Never August, just August. The silence of the office was almost oppressive. From his desk, he contemplated the framed photos on the wall. August with politicians, August at medical school graduations where he was the keynote speaker, August receiving awards, August inaugurating new facilities. In all of them, he was surrounded by people, but in none did he seem truly connected to anyone. He thought of Henry, his younger brother. How long had it been since they had a real conversation? They exchanged congratulatory messages on holidays, but their last sincere talk had been years ago, when they argued about their parents' inheritance. Henry had chosen a different path, far from the spotlight and power. Now he lived on a ranch on the rural western slope, with a wife and children August barely knew. His phone vibrated. It was a calendar notification. "Call Teresa. Anniversary." August felt a tightness in his chest. Teresa, his ex-wife. 15 years of marriage that ended with a civilized settlement and the mutual realization that they were living like strangers under the same roof. No children, no major fights, just the silent acceptance that they had lost each other somewhere along the way. His finger hovered over her contact. What would he say beyond formal congratulations? Ask how her life was with her new husband in London? Comment on the weather? He gave up. He sent a short, impersonal message, along with the bank transfer he made every year, a generous gift that replaced their lost intimacy. As he prepared for dinner, adjusting his impeccable suit in front of the mirror in his private bathroom, August faced his own reflection. The graying hair at his temples gave him an air of respectability. The discreet wrinkles around his eyes suggested experience, not fatigue. The image he had so carefully cultivated was intact, but behind it, what was left? The dinner at the most exclusive restaurant in Denver followed the expected script. August was charismatic with the Japanese investors, told the right stories at the appropriate moments, and made calculated promises about the bright future of the expansion. His partners, Marcus and Ronald, complemented his words with precise data and optimistic projections. A well-oiled team after years of practice. When he said goodbye to the investors, it was already past midnight. Marcus suggested they continue the night at an exclusive bar in the Cherry Creek neighborhood. "Come on, August. It's been a while since we relaxed together," Marcus insisted. "We have to celebrate this partnership. You guys go ahead. I need to review some documents for tomorrow." August lied with a rehearsed smile. The driver was waiting for him at the restaurant door with the black Audi. During the drive to his mansion in Cherry Hills Village, an affluent suburb of the Colorado capital, August watched the empty streets through the tinted window. The city slept while his mind continued to churn. The mansion was lit up when he arrived, but empty as always. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, had already left, leaving only a note saying that dinner was in the refrigerator if he needed it. August ignored the food. He had no appetite. He climbed the wide stairs leading to the second floor. The echo of his footsteps reverberated through the empty house, reminding him of the vastness of his isolation. In the hallway, he passed the door of what was once the planned nursery for children who never came. Now it served as another office he rarely entered. In the master bedroom, he took off his suit and poured himself another drink from the small bar. Through the large window, he could see the city lights below. So many lives happening, so many stories unfolding, while he remained suspended in his fortress of glass and concrete. His cell phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Rafaela, the group's legal director. It was strange for her to call so late. "August, sorry for the hour." Her voice sounded tense. "We need to talk about the lawsuit concerning the Washington, D.C. clinic. I've gained access to some documents that could complicate our defense. More problems to solve, more fires to put out. It was always like this." "Can we talk about this tomorrow, Rafaela?" he replied, feeling suddenly exhausted. "Of course, but it's urgent. The family's lawyer contacted us and—" "Tomorrow, first thing," he interrupted firmly. "Good night." He hung up before she could insist. The D.C. case was complicated. An accusation of medical malpractice that could tarnish the group's immaculate reputation. August knew his name would be in the media again, not as a benefactor of health, but as the cold businessman who prioritized profits. He lay down on the king-size bed, perfectly made by the cleaning staff. Beside him, only management books and business magazines. No novels, no personal photographs, no objects that revealed who August Sinclair was beyond the businessman. It was then that the idea emerged, first as an absurd thought, then as an intriguing possibility, and finally, as a plan. What if he simply disappeared? Not literally, but what if he stopped being the great August Sinclair for a while? What if he pretended to be sick, gravely ill, to see who truly cared? It was madness, certainly. But as sleep eluded him, August mentally elaborated on how it would work. He would announce a serious diagnosis, something convincing but not terminal. He would step away from the companies temporarily. He would observe from a distance who would show genuine concern, who would visit the man, not the magnate. The idea consumed him throughout the night. When the sun began to rise, painting the Denver sky with orange hues, August already had a plan. He would use his medical contacts to forge reports. He would inform only the essentials to his partners. He would retreat to his mansion, claiming the need for rest and treatment. And then he would finally know the truth about his life. Was there anyone who truly cared about August, the man behind the empire? Chapter 2. The charade begins. The next morning, August cancelled all his appointments. His decision was made. He called Dr. Charles Reed, his personal physician for over a decade, and one of the few people he could call a friend, although their relationship had never gone beyond cordial professionalism. "I need a favor, Charles. A different kind of favor," August said, sitting in his mansion's office observing the impeccably manicured garden through the window. Charles listened in silence to the unusual request. When August finished explaining his plan, there was a long silence on the line. "August, I understand your social experiment, but this is completely unethical. I can't falsify a diagnosis, you know that." "I'm not asking for an official falsification," August argued. "I just need you not to deny it when I announce my leave of absence for health reasons." "It's different." "Still," Charles hesitated. "What do you hope to find with this, August? Have you considered just talking to people, or seeking therapy?" The suggestion irritated August. Therapy was for weak people, with no control over their emotions. He was August Sinclair, the man who had built an empire from scratch. He didn't need to lie on a couch to understand his own life. "I don't need therapy, Charles. I need the truth. A truth I will only discover this way." In the end, Charles didn't explicitly agree, but he didn't refuse to cooperate either. He knew August well enough to know that when he decided on something, nothing could stop him. At least this way he could monitor the situation. The following day, August called an extraordinary meeting with his top executives. Seated at the head of the conference table in the central office, He maintained a serious expression as he faced the 8 men and 3 women who made up the top echelon of his corporate group. "I've called you here to communicate something personal," he began, his voice calculatedly weak. "I recently received a diagnosis that will require my temporary leave from the group's activities." The ensuing silence was broken only by the sound of a shifting chair. August carefully studied each reaction, the genuine shock from Claudia, his secretary, the quick exchange of glances between Marcus and Ronald, his oldest partners, the furrowed brow of Raffaella, the legal director, the unreadable expression of Paul, the chief financial officer. "What kind of diagnosis, August?" Marcus finally asked, leaning forward. "Is it serious?" "It's a neurological issue," August replied, maintaining intentional vagueness. "We're still investigating the extent, but the doctors have recommended complete rest and stress reduction for the next month at a minimum." "Who will take over?" Paul questioned bluntly. The direct question, more concerned with the company than with his health, did not surprise August. It was exactly the kind of reaction he expected his experiment to confirm. "The board of directors, as stipulated in the bylaws. You will receive a memo later today with all the details of the transition." The meeting continued with a discussion of ongoing projects. Only Claudia asked if he needed anything, if there was any way she could help. The rest of the team quickly adapted to the idea of his absence, some even showing a poorly disguised enthusiasm for the new possibilities that were opening up. When everyone had left, August remained alone in the room, feeling a mixture of confirmation of his suspicions and a pang of disappointment he hadn't expected. He thought about the next step, a discreet press release, enough to justify his disappearance from the business and social circuits, but without details that could compromise him in the future. The next day, a short note was published in a business journal, stating that for health reasons, businessman August Sinclair will temporarily step down from the presidency of the Horizon Group. The news was quickly picked up by other outlets, some speculating on the nature of the illness, others focusing on the impact on the corporate group. In his mansion in Cherry Hills Village, August watched it all with a calculated detachment. He instructed Mrs. Gable, his housekeeper, to tell any visitors that he was resting and could not receive anyone. He dismissed the driver and most of the domestic staff, keeping only essential services. During the first week, his phone rang non-stop. Get-well-soon messages arrived from business contacts, politicians, and celebrities he had met at charity events. They all seemed to follow the same script: generic expressions of concern, vague offers of help, ending with phrases about how he was essential and should take care of himself to come back soon. August replied to all of them with a standardized thank you note drafted by his PR team. To complete the charade, he asked Charles to spread the word among mutual acquaintances that his condition required isolation, that he was undergoing an experimental treatment and needed tranquility. In the second week, the calls began to dwindle. The messages, too. The few who persisted no longer asked about his health, but about business decisions that couldn't wait. Marcus and Ronald showed up at the mansion once, but their visit lasted less than 20 minutes. They brought a basket of exotic fruits and talked about the need for his signature on some important documents. "The Japanese investors are concerned about your absence," Ronald commented, as August signed the papers with little interest. "I think we need to give them some assurance that you're still in control, even from a distance. Tell them to trust the board. That's why we created it." Marcus glanced quickly around the room, noticing the drawn curtains, the dim light, the books piled next to the armchair where August was sitting. "You look well considering the circumstances," he observed, in a tone that suggested more of a question than a statement. "I have good days and bad days," August replied vaguely. "Today is one of the good ones." When they left, August felt strangely relieved. The visit only confirmed what he already suspected. His partners were more worried about the business than his health. He didn't blame them. He would probably act the same way if the situation were reversed. By the third week, silence had settled into the mansion for good. The floral arrangements that had arrived in the first few days were now wilted. The speedy recovery cards were gathering dust on the hall table. No visits, no personal calls. His brother Henry called once, offering to come from the western slope to Denver if needed. August declined, maintaining the charade, saying he was well looked after by doctors and didn't want to worry the family. Deep down, he feared Henry would see through the lie. His brother had always been too perceptive. Teresa, his ex-wife, sent a formal message wishing him well. Nothing more. Not even curiosity about what his condition actually was. The marriage had been over for years, but August felt a pang of hurt at such complete detachment. It was during this third week that August began to feel the real weight of his decision. The experiment was working perfectly. He was discovering exactly who cared about him beyond appearances. The problem was that the answer seemed to be no one. The nights became especially difficult. Without the distractions of work, without the social events that filled his calendar, August was forced to confront the emptiness of his existence. He tried to read but couldn't concentrate. He watched movies without really seeing them. He spent hours looking out the window, observing the city below so full of life, while he voluntarily isolated himself. One night, while searching a bookshelf for something to read, he found an old photo album. He sat on the rug, something he hadn't done since childhood, and began to flip through the time-yellowed pages. There he was, a skinny boy in Aspen, his hometown. Photos with his parents, now deceased, with Henry always laughing, always more outgoing. Photos from his teenage years, from the beginning of medical school, which he had dropped out of in his third year to focus on business. And then a photo he hadn't seen in decades. August at 16, next to a girl with a luminous smile and curly hair. Lara Gardner, his first love, perhaps his only true one. The daughter of a teacher at the public school where he studied, Lara dreamed of being a nurse, of caring for people, of making a difference. They had dated for almost 2 years, until August left for Denver to study medicine. They promised to maintain a long-distance relationship, but life pulled them apart. August immersed himself in his studies, then in business. Lara. August never heard from her again. Looking at that photo, at that innocent, hopeful smile, August felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Longing. Not just for Lara, but for the person he was back then. Someone with simple dreams, with the ability to genuinely connect with other people. What would Lara think of him now? Of the empire he had built, of the choices he had made, of the lonely man he had become. That night, August had trouble sleeping. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed of the cobblestone streets of Aspen, of the smell of fresh bread from the bakery near his parents' house, of shared laughter under the trees in the backyard, and of Lara, always Lara, her smile remaining as the last image before he woke up. The next morning, something had shifted inside him. The experiment would continue, but August realized he wasn't just testing others. He was finding himself, and he wasn't sure if he was prepared for what he might discover. Chapter 3. The Unexpected Reunion. August's isolation had lasted a month when the mansion's doorbell rang on a Thursday morning. The sound echoed through the empty rooms, almost startling him. He was in the library, distractedly flipping through a biography of Charles Lindbergh, when he heard Mrs. Gable answer the door. After a few minutes, the housekeeper appeared at the library entrance, her expression a mix of concern and embarrassment. "Mr. Sinclair, there's a woman here looking for work. Normally I'd turn her away, but since you asked me to hire someone to help with the cleaning." August looked up from his book, intrigued. He had indeed mentioned to Mrs. Gable that he could hire someone else to help around the house, since he had reduced the staff to maintain his charade of isolation, but he didn't expect her to bring candidates to him. "Tell her to leave a resume, Mrs. Gable. You can interview and decide yourself." "The thing is, she doesn't have a resume, Mr. Sinclair. She said she's worked in private homes her whole life but never had anything formal. She has excellent references, though, and she seems like a very honest person." August sighed. He didn't have the patience for this, but something in Mrs. Gable's tone made him relent. "All right, I'll speak with her. Ask her to wait in the living room." He closed the book and headed to the living room. Before entering, he adjusted his posture, preparing for the character he was playing, the ailing businessman. He purposefully loosened his tie, let his shoulders slump a bit, and composed an expression of weariness. When he entered the room, he saw only the back of the woman who was observing the garden through the large window. Graying hair mixed with brown, tied in a simple bun, medium height, a discreet navy blue dress, flat shoes, an ordinary, unpretentious figure. "Good morning," he said, his voice deliberately weakened. "Mrs. Gable told me you're looking for work." The woman turned, and August's world stopped for an instant. Despite the more than 30 years that had passed, despite the marks of time, he immediately recognized that face, the hazel eyes, the delicate chin, the smile that always started on the left side of her mouth. Lara Gardner. "Good morning, sir," she replied, showing no sign of recognition. "I'm sorry to bother you. I heard you needed someone to help with the house, and I'm looking for a job." August stood motionless for a few seconds, unable to fully process what was happening. It was her, without a doubt. Time had left its marks, but the essence was still there. How was it possible that she was standing right at his door after all these years? And even more disconcerting, how was it possible that she didn't recognize him? "Are you all right, sir?" Lara asked, concerned by his prolonged silence. "Yes, yes." August regained his composure, remembering to maintain his role. "I'm just a bit tired today. Please have a seat." She obeyed, perching on the edge of the sofa, her hands resting politely in her lap. August sat in the armchair opposite her, observing her discreetly, searching for any sign of recognition in her gestures. "Mrs. Gable mentioned you have experience in private homes." "Yes, sir. I worked for many years at the Harris family's house in Aspen, taking care of the house and the children. Then I came to Denver 15 years ago when I got divorced. I've worked for several families here, Aspen." So she had stayed in their hometown for a while. August felt an almost irresistible urge to ask about her life, about what had happened after they separated, but he held back. She clearly didn't recognize him, and something in him wanted to preserve that anonymity, at least for now. "And what brings you to this house specifically?" he asked, trying to keep his tone professional. Lara hesitated for a moment, as if choosing her words. "I'll be honest, sir. I lost my last job when the family moved abroad. Their neighbor, who knows your housekeeper, mentioned you were looking for someone here. I came to try." August nodded, trying to contain the storm of emotions the unexpected reunion was causing. "I see. And are you available to start immediately?" "Yes, sir," she replied, with a small smile of relief. "I can start today, if you need." "Excellent," August said, standing up, signaling the end of the brief interview. "Mrs. Gable will explain the details. It will be a trial period, of course. Thank you so much, sir. You won't regret it." When she smiled, August felt as if he was 16 again, waiting for Lara outside the school, a flower picked on the way hidden behind his back. "Just one thing," he added, almost without thinking. "My name is August." "August," she repeated, as if memorizing a routine piece of information. "Understood. You can call me Lara." Not a flicker of recognition crossed her eyes. To her he was just another employer, just another rich man in a house that was too big. When Lara left the room, accompanied by Mrs. Gable, August returned to the library, but he couldn't resume his reading. His heart was beating too fast, his mind filled with questions. Was it possible she really didn't recognize him? Or was she pretending, for some reason he couldn't comprehend? The days that followed brought a new dynamic to the silent mansion. Lara arrived early, always punctual, always with a discreet smile. She worked efficiently, without making unnecessary noise. She respected August's supposed state of health, moving through the house like a comforting, almost invisible presence. August, for his part, found himself inventing reasons to be in the same rooms as her. He would pretend to read in the garden when he knew she would be tending the plants. He would appear in the kitchen under the pretext of getting water, just when she was preparing lunch. It was pathetic, he knew, but he couldn't help it. Gradually, small conversations began to emerge between them. Never long, never too personal, but enough for August to rediscover the Lara he had known and to see the woman she had become. "You hardly eat anything," she commented one afternoon, collecting the lunch tray he had barely touched. "If you don't mind me saying, you won't get better like this." "I don't have much of an appetite lately," he replied, maintaining the charade of illness. "My grandmother used to say that food is medicine just as much as medicine is medicine," Lara said with a smile. "Tomorrow I'll make something special. You'll see, you'll eat every bite." And she kept her promise. The next day, she brought him a vegetable soup with chunks of chicken that immediately transported him to his childhood in Aspen. The taste was incredibly familiar. "This reminds me of—" he began, almost giving himself away. "Reminds you of what?" Lara asked, curious. "My mother's cooking," he finished, deflecting from what he was really going to say. "She made a soup very much like this." "Mothers from the mountains all have the same hidden recipe book," Lara joked. "I passed it on to my daughter, too." "You have a daughter?" August asked, genuinely interested. "I do. Renata, she's 30. She's a nurse at the University of Colorado Hospital. Works a lot, but she's happy with what she does." A nurse, just as Lara had dreamed of being. August felt a strange satisfaction in knowing that at least that dream lived on, even if through her daughter. A daughter he didn't know, the fruit of a life he hadn't been a part of. "And you, I mean, ma'am," he corrected himself quickly. "Do you have other children?" "You can just call me Lara, I don't mind," she smiled. "And no, just Renata. My ex-husband wanted more, but things didn't work out as we planned. There was a world of untold history in that simple sentence. August wanted to ask more, to know every detail of the years they had lost, but he contented himself with that small opening. The weeks passed, and Lara's presence became the center of August's routine. Without realizing it, he began to dress better, even inside the house. He shaved every day, chose his clothes more carefully. He spent less time feigning weakness, forgetting for moments about his own charade. One day, while Lara was cleaning the shelves in the library, she commented on the books. "I've never seen so many books in my life. Have you read all of them?" "No, not even close," August admitted. "Many were bought by the decorator. To match the furniture, I believe." Lara laughed, a crystalline sound that filled the library and August's heart. "At least they're pretty, but it's a shame for them to just sit there as decoration. Books are meant to be read." "Do you like to read?" he asked, remembering how the young Lara always carried a book borrowed from the local library. "I've always loved it. I don't have much time, but I read before bed. I'm finishing A Room with a View for the 3rd time." August remembered immediately. He had given her that book for her 17th birthday. Could it be the same copy? Impossible, after all this time, but the coincidence hit him hard. "It's a good book," he commented, trying to keep his voice neutral. "It was a gift from someone special," she said with a distant look. Then, as if realizing she had said too much, she quickly returned to her work. That night, August couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, thinking about Lara, about the past, about the choices he had made. For the first time, he wondered if his charade had gone too far. He was deceiving everyone around him, including Lara. But he couldn't stop now. The truth could drive her away for good, and the idea of losing that connection again, even one built on a lie, was unbearable. The next morning, a heated argument at the mansion's entrance woke him. He went downstairs, still in his robe, worried, and found Marcus, his partner, arguing with Mrs. Gable. "August," Marcus exclaimed upon seeing him. "Finally. Your housekeeper wouldn't let me in, saying you couldn't be disturbed." "She was following my orders," August replied coolly. "What's so urgent, Marcus?" His partner looked around, as if checking if they were truly alone. "We need to talk in private. It's about the Japanese investors and some other matters." August led Marcus to his office, aware that the real conversation had nothing to do with investors, but with his prolonged absence. He closed the door, preparing for another stage of his performance. What he didn't know was that, in the meantime, Lara was finding something in the library that would completely change the course of his experiment. Chapter 4. Secrets Revealed. While August was talking with Marcus in the office, Lara continued her cleaning routine in the library. Moving some heavy books from the top shelf, she noticed a small leather-bound notebook hidden behind them. It didn't seem to belong with the set of luxurious bindings. It was simple, worn from use, with a texture that suggested years of handling. She hesitated for a moment. She shouldn't be snooping through her employer's personal belongings, but something about the notebook drew her in, as if it emanated a familiar energy. She glanced at the door, made sure she was alone, and carefully picked it up. There was no title on the cover, just the initials AS discreetly embossed in the bottom corner. She opened it cautiously, and the first page revealed a date from over 20 years ago and a firm, masculine handwriting. "Left Aspen a week ago, and it already feels like a piece of me was left behind. College is everything I imagined. The professors are brilliant, but at night, when I'm alone in the dorm, all I can think about is Lara. Her smile, the way her eyes light up when she talks about becoming a nurse." Lara felt her heart race. Could it be? She turned a few pages, reading scattered excerpts. 3rd month in Denver. Lara's letters are getting shorter and less frequent. I try to understand. I know she's busy with her studies too, but I'm afraid the distance is pulling us apart in ways I can't control. Met a businessman today who offered me an internship at his clinic. The pay is good, and I can continue my studies at night. Part of me knows I should just focus on college as my parents wish, but the opportunity is tempting. I didn't answer Lara's last letter. What could I say? That I'm working 16 hours a day? That I'm no longer sure I want to be a doctor? That our lives are heading in such different directions that I can't see a future together anymore? Lara turned the pages with trembling fingers, now recognizing the story with devastating clarity. It was him, August. Her August, from Aspen. The boy who had promised to come back and never did. The first love that time had turned into a bittersweet memory, tucked away in the back of her heart. completely absorbed by the work at the clinic. Henry says he doesn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he's right. Sometimes I don't recognize myself. The money is coming in, so is the recognition. But yesterday I passed by a music store and saw a guitar that reminded me of the afternoons playing for Lara in her backyard. For a moment, I almost went in to buy it, but then my phone rang. It was an investor. Real life was calling me back. The entries became more spaced out over the years. As she read, Lara had the strange sensation of witnessing the transformation of a young man full of dreams into the reserved, lonely man who now employed her. Inaugurated the second clinic today. The newspapers covered the event. I smiled for the cameras, shook the right hands, said the expected words. Everyone congratulated me as if I had achieved something extraordinary. In the car, on the way home, I drove past the university district and saw a couple of students embracing on a park bench. They looked so happy in their simplicity. I wondered if Lara found someone, if she's happy, if she still thinks of me sometimes. Lara closed the notebook abruptly when she heard approaching voices. Quickly, she placed it back on the shelf between the books and picked up her duster, pretending to clean as the door opened. August entered, followed by a man in a suit who was speaking in a low but intense tone. Upon seeing her, they both fell silent. "Excuse me, I was just leaving," Lara said, avoiding looking directly at August. Now that she knew who he was, she feared her eyes would reveal her secret. "It's all right, Lara. You can continue," August replied, with a kindness that now made perfect sense. She left quickly, her heart beating so loudly it felt like everyone could hear it. She needed air, she needed to think. She went to the garden where she found Mrs. Gable pruning some plants. "Is everything all right, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost," the housekeeper commented, noticing her pallor. "I'm fine, just a little tired," Lara replied, trying to regain her composure. "Mrs. Gable, how long has Mr. Sinclair been sick?" The question came out spontaneously before she could stop it. The housekeeper frowned thoughtfully. "It's been about 2 months since he announced it. But to be honest with you, I never really understood what the illness is. He doesn't seem that unwell, does he? He takes very little medicine for someone supposedly so sick." So Mrs. Gable had her doubts too. Lara nodded, pretending to agree casually, but her mind was working furiously. August, her August from their youth, had become a healthcare magnate, and now he was faking an illness. Why? What was he hoping to achieve with this charade? The questions piled up in her mind as she automatically helped Mrs. Gable with the plants. Inside the house, the conversation between August and Marcus was heating up. "I'm not questioning your condition, August," Marcus was saying, clearly uncomfortable. "But the rumors are starting to circulate. People are talking." "What people? Talking about what?" August asked, annoyed by the insinuation. "People on the board, in management. Ronald heard from a doctor friend that no one in the medical community knows exactly what you have. It's strange, you have to admit." August felt a pang of concern. He hadn't considered that his charade could be questioned so quickly. Was the plan spinning out of control? "Marcus, I'm under private medical care. It's not something I'm broadcasting in the hospital corridors. I understand and I respect your privacy, but—" Marcus hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "The Japanese investors are threatening to pull out if they don't get concrete assurances about your health. And there are rumors that Paul is maneuvering with some board members to take over the presidency permanently." The news didn't surprise August. Paul had always been ambitious, and August knew his absence would create a power vacuum that someone would try to fill. "Let Paul make his moves, the board won't listen to him." "Don't be so sure," Marcus warned. "Paul has convincing arguments about how the uncertainty is affecting the group's stock value." August walked to the window, watching the garden where Lara was working with Mrs. Gable. There was something so natural, so true in the way she moved, how she related to the world, the complete opposite of the falsehood his life had become. "So what do you suggest?" he finally asked. "Come back, August. Even if it's gradually. Show up at a few important meetings, reassure the investors in person, show them that sick or not, you're still in control." When Marcus finally left, August remained in his office, reflecting. The charade he had created to find out who truly cared had revealed painful truths, but it had also brought Lara back into his life, even if under false pretenses. What should he do now? Continue with the plan and risk losing everything he had built professionally? Or retake the reins of his business life and likely lose the rediscovered connection with Lara, who saw him only as an ailing employer in need of care? At dinner that evening, Lara brought the meal to the office where August was still working, organizing some documents left by Marcus. She placed the tray on the side table and stood there, as if wanting to say something but unable to find the words. "Is something wrong, Lara?" he asked, noticing her hesitation. "No, nothing," she replied quickly. "It's just that you seem better today, more energetic." There was something in her tone, an almost veiled accusation, that made August wonder if she suspected something. "I have better days and worse days," he replied, repeating his usual excuse. "Today is a good day." Lara nodded, still not moving to leave. "Have you ever visited Aspen?" she finally asked. The question caught August by surprise. Was it a coincidence, or did she know? "Yes, many years ago," he answered cautiously. "Why?" "It's my hometown. I thought I recognized a mountain accent when you speak, especially when you're tired. I was born in a small town in the mountains," he admitted, choosing not to specifically mention Aspen. "But I left when I was young." Lara smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's funny how life comes full circle, isn't it? People leave their small towns, seek something bigger, and sometimes end up finding pieces of their past in the most unexpected places." With that enigmatic observation, she withdrew, leaving August intrigued and vaguely uncomfortable. There was something in the way she had spoken, an insinuation he couldn't quite decipher. The next morning, August woke to the sound of his cell phone. It was Charles, his doctor. "August, we have a problem," he said without preamble. "I'm getting calls from journalists asking about your condition." "What do you mean?" August sat up in bed, suddenly alert. "A reporter from the Denver Post called me last night. Said he received an anonymous tip that you're faking being sick. He asked if I was covering up the charade." August felt his blood run cold. Who could have done this? Marcus, Paul, someone closer? "What did you tell him?" "Nothing, obviously. I cited doctor-patient confidentiality. But they won't give up easily, August. This kind of story about someone of your caliber sells papers." After hanging up, August remained sitting on the bed, trying to process the implications. His charade was about to be exposed. The newspapers would have a field day with the story of the powerful businessman who lied about a serious illness. His credibility would be destroyed. The value of his companies would plummet. And Lara would despise him when she found out. He walked down the stairs slowly, feeling the weight of his choices. The house was quiet, just the distant sound of Mrs. Gable in the kitchen. Lara hadn't arrived yet. It was then that he noticed something strange in the entrance hall. The small picture frame he kept on the console, with a photo of his parents, was in a different position. He approached and realized that, tucked behind the frame, was a folded piece of paper, a note. He unfolded it with trembling fingers, immediately recognizing the delicate handwriting. "August from Aspen, I know who you are, and I know you're not really sick. We talked tonight, Lara." The note was simple, direct, devastating. Lara knew. She knew who he was. She knew about the charade he was maintaining. How? When had she found out? The notebook. It had to be. The old diary he had kept for years, where he recorded his most intimate thoughts, his memories, his regrets. The notebook he believed was well hidden in the library. August sat on the stairs, the note still in his hands, feeling the world he had so carefully constructed crumbling around him. He was about to lose everything: his business empire, his reputation, and most painfully, the only person who truly mattered. At that moment, he heard the front door open. Lara walked in, carrying her simple bag. Their eyes met, and for an instant, time seemed to freeze. There was no longer an employer and an employee, just August and Lara, like 30 years ago, under the starry sky of Aspen, full of unfulfilled promises and paths that had diverged. "You got my note," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. "I did," he replied, putting the paper in his pocket. "Can we talk now?" Lara shook her head. "Tonight. I have a lot of work to do today, and you have important decisions to make too, from what I overheard yesterday." With those words, she headed to the kitchen, leaving August alone with the certainty that, in a few hours, he would face the most important judgment of his life. Chapter 5. Confrontations and Confessions. The day dragged on like an eternity for August. Every minute felt like an hour as he moved between his office and other rooms in the house, unable to concentrate on anything. Lara, meanwhile, remained distant, carrying out her tasks with her usual efficiency, but avoiding him. When their paths inevitably crossed, she treated him with a cool politeness, as if nothing unusual were happening, as if she hadn't left that devastating note. Around 3 in the afternoon, the phone rang. It was Rafaela, the legal director. "August, we have a situation." Her voice sounded tense. "A journalist from the Denver Post is asking questions about your medical condition. He's implying he has a source claiming you're faking it." So it had begun. August closed his eyes for a moment, trying to gather his thoughts. What exactly is he asking? He wants to know your precise diagnosis, who your doctor is, and why there are no records of hospitalizations or treatments. He also mentioned that a close partner told him you're perfectly healthy and using the illness as an excuse for some personal purpose. A close partner. Could it be Marcus, worried about the investors? Or Paul, trying to force his permanent departure? What did you tell him? "Just that we don't comment on the personal health of our directors and that all leaves of absence follow internal protocols," Rafaela replied. "But he's not going to be satisfied with that, August. He's preparing a story for tomorrow." After hanging up, August sat down heavily in his chair. The situation was spiraling out of control quickly. In a few hours, his charade would be splashed across the newspapers. His reputation, built over decades, would be shattered. The group's stock value would plummet. The Japanese investors would certainly back out. And all for what? For a selfish experiment that had only revealed the obvious, that people cared more about what he represented than who he really was. Except for Lara. Lara, who had cared for him without knowing who he was. Lara, who had brought light back into his life, even under false pretenses. Lara, who now knew everything and probably despised him. At 4, another call, this time from Ronald, his other partner. "August, I'm here with Paul at the office. We need to talk urgently." "About?" "About the extraordinary board meeting Paul has called for tomorrow. He's proposing your permanent replacement, claiming your condition prevents effective management of the group." So Paul had made his move. It wasn't surprising, but the speed with which he had acted indicated he might be behind the leak to the press. "And you, Ronald? What position will you take in this meeting?" There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. "August, you're a long-time friend, but I have to think about the group. If you can't show up in person tomorrow and clarify the situation," the unfinished sentence said it all. Even Ronald, whom he had known for 20 years, wouldn't hesitate to turn his back on him if it meant protecting his own interests. "I'll be there," August said, his voice cold. "Tell Paul not to start redecorating my office just yet." He hung up without waiting for a response, anger momentarily replacing his anxiety. How had it come to this? How had he allowed a simple social experiment to threaten everything he had built? When the clock finally struck 7 in the evening, August heard Mrs. Gable's voice saying goodbye. Moments later, soft footsteps approached his office. Lara knocked lightly on the ajar door. "Can we talk now?" she asked, her face unreadable. August nodded, indicating the armchair in front of him. She entered but remained standing. "I'd rather talk in the garden," she said. "I need some fresh air for this conversation." He agreed silently and followed her to the backyard garden. The night was cool, the sky unusually starry for a big city like Denver. They sat on a wooden bench under the shade of an old apple tree. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of crickets and the distant hum of traffic filled the silence between them. "Why August?" Lara finally asked, looking not at him but at the starry sky. "Why fake an illness? What did you hope to achieve with that?" The question, though expected, hit him hard. How could he explain something that even he didn't fully understand? "I wanted," he began hesitantly, "I wanted to know who really cared about me. Beyond my money, beyond my power, beyond my position. I wanted to find out if there was anyone who cared about August. The man, not August Sinclair, the businessman." Lara finally turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the soft moonlight. "And did you find what you were expecting?" August gave a sad smile. "I found that I've built a life where no one really cares. My partners only think about the business. My employees are afraid of me, not out of love or genuine respect. My ex-wife barely asked about my condition. My brother offered help, but didn't insist when I refused. It's like I'm a ghost, Lara. A ghost surrounded by people, but completely alone." His voice broke on the last word, and he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, the pressure of unshed tears. "And then you showed up," he continued after regaining control. "Without knowing who I was, without knowing my wealth or influence, and you took care of me. Not the businessman, not the magnate, but the man. The man who was pretending to be sick to find out if anyone cared. I didn't know it was you, Lara said, her voice now softer. I didn't recognize the boy from Aspen in the man you've become. When did you realize? Yesterday. When I found your journal in the library, the pieces fell into place. The stories about Aspen, the way you looked at me sometimes as if you were seeing a ghost. August nodded, absorbing the information. And did you tell anyone about the charade? He asked, dreading the answer. Lara frowned, confused. Tell who? The press. One of my partners. Someone leaked the information that I'm faking. The papers will publish the story tomorrow. The genuine shock on Lara's face answered before her words. No, August, I would never do that. I was hurt, confused, even angry when I found out. But I would never betray your trust like that. He believed her instantly. Lara wouldn't be able to lie like that, which meant the leak had come from another source. Paul? Marcus? Someone from the medical team? So it was a coincidence, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Just when you discovered the truth, someone else did too. What truth exactly was discovered? Asked a male voice, surprising them both. Paul was standing a few feet away, partially hidden by the shadow of a tree. August hadn't heard him approach, too engrossed in his conversation with Lara. How did you get in here, Paul? August asked, standing up quickly. Your housekeeper let me in before she left, Paul replied, stepping into the light. She said you were in the garden. I came to talk about tomorrow's meeting, but it seems I've interrupted something more interesting. There was a calculating glint in Paul's eyes that August knew well. He was putting the pieces together, understanding the situation. So it's true, Paul continued, a malicious smile forming. You really are faking. There's no illness at all, is there? It was all an act. Lara stood up, instinctively positioning herself beside August. This is none of your business, she said, with a firmness that surprised both men. Paul ignored her, focusing on August. Do you have any idea what this means, August? The damage to the group's reputation, the breach of trust with investors, the lawsuits we could face. I will take responsibility for my actions, August replied, remaining calm, as I always have. No, you don't understand. Paul took a step forward, his tone shifting to something more threatening. This isn't just about you. It's about all of us. The stock will plummet. Contracts will be reviewed. Decades of work destroyed by your selfish whim. Paul's anger was palpable, but there was something else in his demeanor. An opportunity being calculated. A plan forming. What do you want, Paul? August asked directly. You didn't come here just to express your moral outrage. Paul smiled, regaining his composure. Always perceptive, August. Yes, I have a proposal. Tomorrow's meeting, the newspaper story, all of it can be avoided. In exchange for what? Your voluntary resignation, not from the whole group, just from the presidency. You keep your shares, your seat on the board, but you step away from executive management. We'll claim that your condition, while not as severe as initially feared, still requires a partial leave. We save face. The market remains stable. Everyone wins. August watched the man before him, weighing the proposal. He was being blackmailed, clearly, but surprisingly he didn't feel the outrage he expected. Just a deep weariness and the certainty that something needed to change in his life. And if I refuse? Then I won't hold the story. The journalist is a personal friend of mine, August. He came to me first with the anonymous tip. I asked for a day to verify the facts before he published. It's up to you what makes the headlines tomorrow. The administrative reorganization of the Horizon Group, or the scandal of the healthcare magnate who deceived everyone. Lara, who had remained silent during the standoff, took a step forward. You're the one behind the anonymous tip, aren't you? She asked, her eyes flashing with indignation. How you set this whole thing up? Paul laughed, not denying the accusation. And who are you exactly, the nurse, the caregiver? She has nothing to do with this, Paul, August intervened, his voice harsh. Leave her out of it. On the contrary, Paul replied, she seems to be a central part of the story. The great August Sinclair pretending to be sick to, what, impress the help? It's pathetic, August, and if the papers get wind of this angle it will be even more humiliating. The veiled threat was clear. Paul would use Lara, expose their relationship, turn something precious into a sordid scandal for the media to devour. Get out of my house, August said, taking a step toward Paul. Now! Paul was undeterred. Think about my proposal, August. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you don't announce your resignation by then, the story goes public, with all the sordid details we can gather. With those words, he turned, and walked toward the exit, leaving August and Lara alone again in the night garden. When Paul was gone, Lara approached August, lightly touching his arm. "He can't do that. It's blackmail." "He can and he will," August replied, with the certainty of someone who knew the world he lived in. "Paul has always wanted my position. Now he sees the perfect chance to get it without looking like a usurper. He'll be seen as the savior of the group, the responsible leader who took over in a time of crisis. And you're going to give in? You're going to let him win." August looked up at the starry sky, then at Lara's face illuminated by the moonlight. How many nights in Aspen had they spent like this, planning the future, dreaming of possibilities, a future that never materialized because he had chosen another path? "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Part of me wants to fight, to confront Paul, to expose his manipulations. But another part what? Another part wonders if it wouldn't be better to just let it go. The group, the presidency, this whole world of appearances and power I've built, is this really what I want for the rest of my life?" Lara studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to decipher the man he had become. "And what do you want, August?" she finally asked. "What does the boy from Aspen who dreamed of being a doctor, who played guitar under my window, really want from life?" The question hit him hard, because he realized he didn't know the answer. He had spent so much time building an empire, accumulating wealth and power, that he had forgotten to ask himself if this was what he truly desired. "I don't know, Lara. I honestly don't know. But I have until tomorrow morning to figure it out." Chapter 6. Decisions at dawn. August couldn't sleep that night. After Lara left, promising to return the next morning, he remained in the garden for hours, contemplating the stars and the path his life had taken. When the chill of the early morning finally forced him inside, he went not to his bedroom, but to the library. There, among the books he rarely read, he once again found the leather-bound journal that Lara had discovered. He flipped through it slowly, reliving moments from his youth, decisions that had shaped him, dreams he had abandoned along the way. In the final pages, he found an entry from just 5 years ago. "We inaugurated the 10th clinic of the Horizon Group today. Another celebration, more applause, more empty praise. When everyone left, I stood alone in that massive building, with its state-of-the-art equipment and immaculate rooms. I should have felt pride, accomplishment. But all I can think is, if I had become a doctor, as was my original plan, how many lives could I have touched directly? How many eyes would I have seen light up with hope after a positive diagnosis? How many hands would I have held in moments of fragility? I've built clinics that save lives, but I've never saved a life with my own 2 hands." Those words, written in a moment of rare honesty with himself, now echoed with renewed force. He had built a healthcare empire without ever truly caring for anyone. Until Lara appeared. When the sun began to rise, August had made his decision. He went to his room, took a long shower, and dressed with care, not in one of his impeccable executive suits, but in simple, elegant clothes. He wanted to face this day as August, not as the magnate August Sinclair. At 7 in the morning his cell phone rang. It was Charles. "August, have you seen the paper?" The doctor's voice sounded worried. "Not yet. Has something come out?" "The online version. They're implying you faked the illness, citing close sources who claim they never saw any sign of a health problem. They don't mention my name directly, but they suggest doctors might be involved in the charade. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, Charles. Don't worry about me right now. What are you going to do?" August took a deep breath. "I'm going to the board meeting at 9. After that, we'll see." He hung up and opened the newspaper's website. The headline was exactly what Paul had threatened: "Healthcare magnate suspected of faking illness." The article, though filled with allegedly and according to sources, made it clear that his charade was exposed. At 8, the doorbell rang. August opened the door to find Lara standing there, looking as if she had slept as little as he had. "Did you see the paper?" she asked, stepping inside. "I did. Paul followed through on his threat. What are you going to do?" August led her to the kitchen where he made coffee for them both, a simple, domestic gesture he would never have made weeks before. "I'm going to the board meeting," he replied, pouring the coffee into 2 cups. "I'm going to confront Paul and the others, tell the truth, the whole truth. And then," August smiled faintly, "then, Lara, I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago. Start over." She watched him with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "What do you mean?" "I realized something last night, rereading my own thoughts over the years. I never really wanted this whole empire. What I wanted was to make a difference, to help people. I started medical school with that dream. But I let ambition, money, and power lead me astray. Lara nodded, understanding. So you're going to... I'm going to resign, not because Paul is blackmailing me, but because I want to. Because it's time to follow the path I abandoned 30 years ago. An unexpected tear glistened in the corner of Lara's eye. And what happens? With us? The question hung in the air between them, laden with possibilities. That, August replied softly, depends on you, on what you want, Lara. Because what I want is the chance to get to know you again, not as an employer and employee, not as the boy and girl from Aspen, but as the people we are now. Lara reached out, lightly touching his hand on the table. I would like that. The moment was interrupted by the shrill ring of the phone. It was Ronald. August, have you seen the paper? It's a disaster. The investors are panicking. The stock dropped 15% in pre-market trading. Paul is calling a press conference for after the board meeting. You need to come now. We have to do damage control. I'll be there in an hour, Ronald, August replied, with a calmness that surprised even himself. And don't worry, I'll take full responsibility. When he hung up, he realized Lara was watching him intently. Are you sure about this, August? She asked. You built this empire over decades. Aren't you afraid of losing everything? August pondered the question for a moment. I'm afraid, yes, he finally admitted. But more than that, I'm afraid of continuing to lose myself, of dying one day and realizing I lived the life others expected of me, not the one I truly wanted. Lara nodded, understanding perfectly. Do you want me to go with you? The offer touched him deeply. It was exactly the kind of gesture that revealed who Lara was, someone who offered support not to the magnate, but to the man. No, this is something I need to face alone. But will you be here when I get back? I will, she promised. On the drive to the Horizon Group headquarters, August felt a strange mix of nervousness and liberation. The imposing building, with its glass facade reflecting the blue Denver sky, no longer seemed like the fortress of power it used to represent. It was just a building, made of glass, steel, and concrete. In the lobby, he noticed the curious and awkward glances from the employees. Everyone had seen the paper. Everyone knew. Some looked away. Others watched him with a mixture of fascination and disapproval. In the exclusive elevator leading to the boardroom, August reflected on the speech he would give. It wouldn't be a defense, nor an attempt to save his job. It would be the truth, raw and simple, followed by his already made decision. When the doors opened, Claudia, his secretary, was waiting for him with a worried expression. Dr. Sinclair, they're all waiting. The atmosphere is tense. Thank you, Claudia, he replied with a genuine smile. For everything, over all these years. She seemed surprised by his almost valedictory tone, but just nodded respectfully. In the boardroom, 12 faces turned to him as he entered. Faces he knew well. The partners, the directors, the independent board members. And at the opposite head of the table, Paul, with an expression that mixed triumph and false concern. August, Ronald began, standing up. I believe everyone here has read this morning's paper. We need an explanation. August walked calmly to his usual seat but didn't sit down. He remained standing, looking each of them in the eye before speaking. What the newspaper published is true, he said finally, causing a surprised murmur to spread through the room. I am not sick. I never was. It was a charade I created. Paul leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Why, August? Why risk the group's reputation with this madness? Because I needed to find out something important, August replied, undeterred. I needed to know if there was anything real in my life beyond this empire we've built. If there was anyone who cared about the man, not the position. The ensuing silence was thick, awkward. Some board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. And what did you find out? Asked Rafaela, the legal director, with genuine interest. August smiled sadly. I found that I built a life surrounded by people, but completely solitary. I found that in the end, everyone here cares about what I represent, the value I bring to the group, not about me. That's unfair, August, Marcus protested. We've been your friends for decades. We've been partners for decades, Marcus, August corrected gently. Business partners. And there's nothing wrong with that. The fault wasn't yours. It was mine for confusing things, for expecting professional relationships to fill personal voids. Paul slammed his hand on the table, impatient. This is all very touching, August, but the fact is you've severely damaged the group with your existential issues. The stock is plummeting. Investors are panicking. We need immediate action. I agree, August replied, surprising everyone. And that is why I am formally announcing my resignation from the position of president of the Horizon Group, effective immediately. The declaration caused an uproar. Everyone spoke at once, some protesting, others vehemently agreeing. Only Paul maintained a discreet, satisfied smile. This is rash, August, Ronald argued, once the noise subsided. We can control the damage, create an alternative narrative. No, Ronald, August interrupted firmly. I'm tired of alternative narratives, of half-truths, of appearances. It's time for truth and transparency. He then turned to Paul. You got what you wanted, Paul. The presidency is yours if the board approves. And I believe they will because you are competent, despite your questionable methods. Paul had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, August replied, without hostility. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that the group continues to thrive, that the clinics continue to serve those in need. It's important work that impacts thousands of lives. He then turned to the entire board. I am resigning from the presidency, but I am keeping my shares in the group, not for financial gain, but because I believe in the work we do. I will remain a shareholder, but no longer an executive. There was a moment of reflective silence, finally broken by Rafaela. And what do you plan to do now, August? The question was exactly what he had been waiting for. He smiled, feeling a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. I'm going to start over, Rafaela. Follow the path I abandoned 30 years ago, when I left medical school to focus on business. You're going back to medical school? Marcus asked, incredulous. At 52? Perhaps not as a clinical physician, August replied, but there are many ways to contribute to people's health besides owning hospitals. I'm thinking of starting a foundation focused on underserved communities, using my administrative experience for something more direct, more human. Rafaela smiled, the first to genuinely understand. That sounds like a wonderful project, August. Well, this is all very inspiring, Paul interrupted impatiently, but we have a crisis to manage. I suggest we formally approve August's resignation and my interim appointment as president, pending a formal election. Always the pragmatist, Paul, August commented with a slight smile. But you're right. You all have a lot of work ahead of you. And I have a new life to start. With those words, August extended his hand, symbolically passing the command to Paul. It was a gesture of peace, of closing a chapter without resentment. Then he shook the hand of each board member, thanking them for the years of partnership. Some seemed genuinely moved, others clearly relieved by his departure. As he reached the door, he turned one last time. Oh, just one more thing, he said with a small smile. The press conference Paul has called for this afternoon. I'd like to participate if you don't mind. I have a few things to say. Paul frowned, worried. What kind of things? The truth, Paul. Just the truth. That the charade was mine and mine alone. That the group and its directors have always acted with integrity. That I trust in your leadership to continue the work we started. Paul's expression softened, confused by this offer of peace. Why? Because some battles aren't worth fighting, August replied simply, and because I've learned there are more important things in life than power and revenge. As he left the boardroom, he felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The empire he had built would continue without him. The clinics would continue to save lives. But his own life, finally, would begin to follow the course he had secretly always desired. In the parking garage, before getting into his car, he looked one last time at the imposing building that had been the center of his existence for so many years. He felt no sadness, not even nostalgia, only the quiet certainty that he was doing the right thing. He started the car and drove back home, to where Lara was waiting, to the beginning of something new. Chapter 7. New Beginnings. The press conference was exactly as August had expected. A throng of journalists eager for a scandal, cameras everywhere, questions hurled like darts. But he was prepared. Standing next to Paul, who still seemed slightly uncomfortable with his friendly presence, August faced the cameras with a serenity that surprised everyone. Yes, I lied about my health condition, he admitted frankly, silencing the auditorium. It was a misguided personal decision, for which I am deeply sorry. I want to make it clear that no one else in the Horizon Group was aware of the charade. My partners, directors, and board members have always acted with integrity. A journalist raised his hand. Why, Mr. Sinclair? Why risk your reputation and that of the company with this lie? August hesitated for only a second, considering his answer. I spent decades building companies, accumulating wealth and power, without ever stopping to question if this was truly the path I wanted for my life. The charade was a desperate attempt to understand who I was, beyond the businessman, beyond the magnate. It was wrong, it was selfish, and I am here to take full responsibility. Another question, from a reporter in the back. And now, what happens to the Horizon Group? The group moves forward stronger than ever, August replied, gesturing toward Paul, under the competent leadership of Mr. Paul Montero, who has my full confidence to lead the company we built together. Paul, clearly surprised by the public praise, nodded in thanks. Mr. Sinclair, there are rumors that your supposed illness was exposed by someone close to you. Is that true? Another journalist asked, trying to heighten the drama. The source of the information is irrelevant, August answered firmly. What's important is that I have taken responsibility and am here to set the record straight. The press conference continued for another half hour. August answered every question with honesty and calm, shouldering all the blame, protecting the group's reputation, and expressing confidence in the future under new leadership. When it finally ended, he felt exhausted, but strangely light. He had faced the consequences of his actions. He had been honest, perhaps for the first time in decades. As he left through the back of the building to avoid more questions, he found Rafaela waiting for him. That was impressive, August, she said with genuine admiration. Few would have the courage to do what you did today. It wasn't courage, Rafaela. It was necessity, to settle accounts with myself. She studied him for a moment, as if seeing something new in him. What will you do now? Were you serious about the foundation? Completely serious. In fact, I'd like to talk to you about it in the coming days. I'll need a brilliant lawyer to structure the project. What kind of foundation do you have in mind? She asked, genuinely interested. Something focused on underserved communities, offering quality medical assistance, preventative programs, health education. I want to use my administrative knowledge to truly make a difference in people's lives. Rafaela smiled, surprised and flattered. It would be an honor to help you with that. Call me when you're ready. They said goodbye with a hug, the first genuinely affectionate hug they had shared in 20 years of working together. Another barrier had fallen. Another relationship had a chance to become something authentic. In the car, August checked his phone. There were dozens of missed calls and messages, most from acquaintances and business partners reacting to the news of his resignation. One, however, caught his eye. A text message from Lara. Watch the press conference on TV. I'm proud of you. When you get back, we have a lot to talk about. Those simple words brought a smile to his face that lasted the entire drive home. It wasn't just the end of an era, but the beginning of another, one that, for the first time in a long time, genuinely excited him. On the way home, August took a detour. Almost without thinking, he drove to a quiet residential neighborhood where he had never been before. He parked in front of a simple middle-class apartment building and glanced at the piece of paper where he had jotted down the address Mrs. Gable had discreetly given him. Renata, Lara's daughter, lived here, the nurse who carried the dream her mother couldn't realize. August hesitated. Was it appropriate to show up like this, unannounced? What would he say to her? After a few minutes of reflection, he decided this wasn't the time. He needed to first establish a solid foundation with Lara to earn her trust completely before attempting any approach with her daughter. When he arrived home, he found Lara in the garden, watering the plants. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, a warm smile on her face. So it's done, she said, turning off the hose. It's done, he confirmed. Paul is the new president. The Horizon Group will go on without me. And how do you feel? August considered the question, analyzing his emotions. Free, he finally answered. As if I've set down a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten what it was like not to have it. Lara nodded, understanding. And now? Now, August paused, gathering his thoughts. Now I start something new. The foundation I mentioned. Work that truly helps people directly, not just through corporate structures. It sounds like a beautiful project. But before that, he continued, taking a step toward her, there's something more important I need to do. What's that? Find out who Lara Gardner is now. The woman, not the girl I knew in Aspen. The person who cared for me without knowing who I was. The woman who, even after discovering my charade, didn't judge me, didn't abandon me. Lara's eyes shone with restrained emotion. And how do you plan to do that? In the simplest way possible, August replied with a smile. By asking you to dinner, to talk, to start over, not from where we left off 30 years ago, but from where we are now. Two adults with histories, scars, and hopes. If you want to. The last part was said almost as a question, revealing a vulnerability the old August Sinclair would never have allowed to show. I would like that very much, Lara replied softly. She paused, as if considering her next words. August, before we move forward, I need to be honest with you about something. His heart quickened, fearing some revelation that might complicate this new beginning. What is it? He asked, trying to keep his tone calm. At first, when I found out who you were, I was angry, very angry, for you not telling me immediately, for keeping up the charade even after you recognized me. I understand, August began, but she raised a hand, asking to continue. I even considered exposing you, you know, she admitted, surprising him. I was hurt. I felt used in a way. But then I read more of your journal. I saw the transformation you were going through, and I understood that you were suffering too, that the charade was perhaps the only way you could find to free yourself. August absorbed her words, deeply touched by her honesty. Thank you for not exposing me, he said finally. And thank you for giving me this chance now. Everyone deserves a second chance, August, including me. A week later, the mansion in Cherry Hills Village was unrecognizable. The heavy curtains that once blocked the natural light were replaced with lighter ones, allowing the sun to illuminate the rooms. Furniture was rearranged, creating cozier spaces. Fresh flowers in simple vases replaced the sophisticated artificial arrangements that once decorated the rooms. August had let go of some of the domestic staff, keeping only Mrs. Gable, who now treated him with a familiarity that would have been unthinkable weeks before. Lara no longer worked as a household employee, but came by almost daily, always as a guest, never as staff. That afternoon, as they talked in the garden, August asked a question that had been intriguing him. Lara, why did you never remarry after your divorce? She looked at the sky for a moment before answering. I tried a few times. I dated a math teacher when Renata was 15. A good man, kind, stable. Everyone said he would be perfect for me. And what happened? The night before we were supposed to get engaged, I ended it. I couldn't explain it, not to him or to myself. I just knew something was missing. That connection, you know? August nodded, understanding perfectly. And you, she continued, why did your marriage with Teresa end exactly? I don't think it ever really began, he replied with a sigh. We got married for the wrong reasons. She wanted the status of being a successful businessman's wife. I wanted the stability, the appearance of normalcy that a marriage would provide. There was never real love, just social conventions. Lara took his hand gently. It sounds like we were both living in roles that weren't really ours. The difference, August observed, is that you always kept your essence. I lost mine along the way. His phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Henry, his brother. August, how are you? Henry's voice sounded worried. I saw the news, tried calling several times. I'm fine, Henry. Better than I've been in years, actually. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Is it true you really resigned from the presidency of the group? It's true. It was time to move on. Wow. Henry sounded genuinely impressed. I never thought I'd see the day you were always so dedicated to that empire. People change, brother. Sometimes they need a push, but they change. They talked for a few more minutes, with August explaining his plans for the foundation. When he mentioned Lara and their unexpected reunion, Henry let out a surprised laugh. Lara Gardner? The Lara from Aspen? That's unbelievable. It's almost as if life has its own sense of humor, isn't it? Or a sense of justice, Henry replied more seriously. Maybe it's the universe putting things right. Henry suggested coming to visit soon, bringing his wife and kids. August realized with a pang of regret how much time he had wasted away from his family, immersed in the corporate world he had built. I want to get to know my niece and nephew properly this time, Henry. Be the uncle I never was. They'll love getting to know the real August, Henry replied sincerely. So will I. When he hung up, August reflected on his brother's words. Justice. Maybe that was it. A chance to correct the detours of the past, to finally follow the path he had secretly always desired. The following days were intense. August began to officially structure the foundation, meeting with Rafaela to draft the necessary legal documents. He contacted idealistic doctors he had met over the years, talented professionals who shared his new vision of humanized healthcare. Some, surprisingly, agreed to join the project, even for smaller salaries than they would earn in private clinics. "Why did you agree?" August asked Dr. Fernando, a renowned neurologist who had agreed to coordinate the medical team for the first unit. "Because I want to feel like I'm making a difference again, August," he replied simply. "In luxury clinics, we treat problems. In communities, we transform lives." That was exactly how August felt. It was as if he were finally finding people who shared his deepest values, values he himself had suppressed for so long. One evening, while reviewing the architectural plans for the first community clinic, August received an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang, and when he opened the door, he found a young woman he instantly recognized by her familiar features. "Renata?" he asked, surprised. "Mr. Sinclair," she replied, with a determined look that strongly resembled Lara's. "I need to talk to you." He invited her in, feeling strangely nervous. Renata entered, observing the house with an attentive, professional eye. "My mother doesn't know I'm here," she said directly, sitting on the sofa as he indicated. "In fact, she would kill me if she knew." "I understand," August replied, maintaining a respectful distance. "How can I help you?" Renata studied him for a long moment, as if assessing his sincerity. "I want to understand your intentions with my mother," she finally said. "I saw the news about your resignation, about the illness charade. I know she's involved somehow, though she won't tell me everything." August appreciated her directness. "Your concerns are completely valid, Renata, and you deserve complete honesty." For nearly an hour, August explained everything to her. The past in Aspen, the unexpected reunion, the feelings that had never truly died. He spoke about his plans for the foundation, about how he wanted to rebuild his life with real purpose and meaning. "My mother has suffered a lot, Mr. Sinclair," Renata said when he finished. "She raised me alone, worked in private homes while studying at night to get qualified. She's never had an easy life." "I know," August replied, feeling the weight of guilt for not having been there all those years. "And I deeply admire her strength. And yours, by the way." Renata smiled for the first time since she had arrived. "She deserves to be happy. She deserves someone who truly values her." "I couldn't agree more." "And if you hurt her," Renata began, with a look that left no doubt about her seriousness. "I'll have you to answer to," August completed, with a small smile. "Fair enough." As Renata was leaving, he made a request. "We're putting together the team for the Foundation's first clinic. We need an experienced head nurse, someone with a humanized view of healthcare and solid technical knowledge. Your mother mentioned you work at the University of Colorado Hospital." Renata stopped at the door, surprised. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Sinclair?" "I'm offering an opportunity to be part of something significant. The salary would probably be less than what you're currently making." "When do I start?" Renata interrupted, with a glint in her eyes that was very much like Lara's when she talked about helping people. The following evening, August prepared a special dinner. Lara was coming with Renata, who had coincidentally been hired for the foundation. He was as nervous as a teenager on a first date. He wanted everything to be perfect. They arrived together, Renata feigning very well that she didn't know the house. The dinner was surprisingly light and pleasant. Renata had the same sharp sense of humor as her mother, the same ability to tell captivating stories. August watched the two of them interact, feeling privileged to be accepted, even gradually into their small family. "I never thought I'd work for the famous August Sinclair," Renata commented at one point with a playful smile. "The nurses at the hospital talk about you a lot." "Please, call me August, and I hope they say good things," he replied, playing along. "Oh, they say you're demanding, a perfectionist, sometimes temperamental." "Renata," Lara chided, embarrassed. "But they also say," Renata continued, ignoring her mother's look, "that your clinics have saved many lives, that the equipment is always the best, that the quality of care is impeccable." August smiled, touched by the unexpected praise. "Thank you for that. It means a lot. Now we'll see if you can maintain that standard in a community clinic with a limited budget." "It's a challenge I gladly accept," he replied, admiring the combination of professionalism and humanity he saw in the young woman. "And I'm sure that with professionals like you we'll succeed." When Renata stepped out to take a call from the hospital, Lara touched August's hand across the table. "She likes you," she said with a smile. "Believe me, that doesn't happen easily." "She reminds me of you," August replied. "The same determination, the same integrity." "I got lucky." She got the best of me and none of her father. There was an untold story there, August realized, but he didn't want to press. There would be other dinners, other conversations, other moments to learn all the layers of their stories. In the months that followed, the Horizon Gold Foundation took shape. August sold the mansion in Cherry Hills Village and bought a smaller, cozier house in the Washington Park neighborhood. The foundation's first clinic opened in a community on the outskirts of Denver, with state-of-the-art equipment and a small but dedicated team, led by Dr. Fernando with Renata as head nurse. Lara coordinated the social projects with contagious energy, building bridges between the medical team and the community, identifying needs, and creating prevention and education programs. Her knowledge of community dynamics, acquired through years of working closely with people, proved invaluable. August enrolled in a specialization course in public health management, sitting among students decades younger, absorbing knowledge that he immediately translated into improvements for the foundation. His corporate world expertise, combined with his new humanistic perspective, created innovative solutions to old problems. One day, 6 months after the first clinic's inauguration, August received an unexpected visitor. Paul, now firmly established as the president of the Horizon Group, showed up at the foundation unannounced. "Impressive what you've created here," Paul commented, observing the clinic in full operation, patients being treated with dignity and personalized attention. "Thank you," August replied, genuinely surprised by the compliment. "I wasn't expecting your visit." Paul seemed uncomfortable, as if mentally rehearsing a difficult speech. "I came to propose a partnership," he finally said, "between the Horizon Group and your foundation. We could expand this model to other communities using our infrastructure and your methods." August studied the man before him, trying to decipher his true intentions. "Why, Paul? What's in it for you?" Paul hesitated before answering. "Let's just say your transformation has made me think. The group is thriving, as you predicted. Profits are up, the investors are satisfied. But there's something missing. Purpose," August suggested. Paul nodded reluctantly. "Or maybe I've just realized there are other kinds of legacies besides positive balance sheets." August smiled. "People really could change when you least expected it." "Let's talk about it," he agreed, "but on one condition. Any partnership must maintain the original spirit of the foundation. People first, profit second." "Fair enough," Paul agreed, extending his hand, which August shook without hesitation. When Paul left, Lara approached, having observed the conversation from a distance. "Are you really going to consider a partnership with him? After everything?" August wrapped his arm around her waist, watching the clinic's activity through the window of his small office. "You know what I've learned these past few months, Lara? That holding on to grudges is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Paul did what he believed was necessary. I made my mistakes too. Now, if we can turn this story into something positive for more people, why not?" Lara kissed him softly. "You really have changed," she commented with a smile. "No," he corrected. "I just found my way back, with some invaluable help, I might add." The following week they visited Aspen for the first time together since their youth. The historic town remained magnificent, with its Victorian architecture, charming streets, and mountain vistas. They walked hand in hand through the downtown mall, reminiscing about their teenage years, pointing out places that held memories. "It was right there," August said, indicating a bench near a historic hotel, "that I first kissed you. And over there," Lara pointed to an old brick building, "was the library where you always met me after school." They passed by Lara's parents' old house, now occupied by another family, by the school where they had studied, by all the landmarks of a story that had begun decades earlier and now, by an extraordinary twist of fate, had a chance to continue. That evening, staying at a charming inn in the historic center, August took Lara to dinner at the town's oldest restaurant. The place retained its same old-world charm, with candles lighting the tables and a privileged view of the illuminated town. "It feels like we've gone back in time," Lara commented, looking around, "as if the last 30 years never happened." "But they did," August replied, holding her hand across the table. "And maybe they needed to. Maybe we needed to live everything we lived apart to appreciate what we have now." After dinner, walking through a quiet park, August stopped suddenly, taking a small box from his pocket. 30 years ago, on a night like this in a park in Aspen, I was going to ask you to marry me," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "I had bought the ring, rehearsed the speech, planned everything. But then came the offer to go to Denver, the opportunity at the clinic, and, well, you know the rest. Lara looked at the ring, emotional. You kept this for 30 years. No, he admitted with a smile. This one is new, but the feeling has old and deep roots. He knelt right there in the public park, in front of a few curious passers-by. Lara Gardner, I know it's soon that we're still rediscovering each other, that there's a lot to learn about one another. But I also know with more certainty than I've ever had about anything in my life that I want to build a future with you. A future of purpose, of meaning, of true love. Would you give me that honor? The tears in Lara's eyes sparkled under the park lights. Yes, she answered simply, extending her hand for him to place the ring on her finger. Yes, August from Aspen. The wedding took place 3 months later, a simple ceremony in the backyard of their new house, with only close family and friends. Renata was her mother's maid of honor. Henry was his brother's best man. Mrs. Gable personally baked the cake following an old family recipe. In the weeks that followed, the partnership between the Horizon Gold Foundation and the Horizon Group was formalized, with plans to expand the model to 5 more underserved communities in the next year. The news was well received by the press, transforming the narrative about August Sinclair, from the businessman who faked an illness to the man who found his true purpose in life. On a quiet afternoon, a year after it all began, August found Lara in their home garden, watering the plants just as she had been on the day everything changed. What are you thinking about? She asked, noticing his contemplative gaze. About how life comes full circle, he replied. About how sometimes you have to pretend to die to truly start living. Lara put down the hose and hugged him. It wasn't the charade that changed your life, August. It was the courage to admit the truth, to face who you really are, who you always were. And who am I? He asked, curious for her answer. A man with a huge heart who got lost for a while in the maze of success and power, but found his way back. A man who had the rare chance to start over and seized it with both hands. August kissed her, feeling more complete than he had ever imagined possible. You know what surprises me the most, he commented. How everything seems so simple now. Life, purpose, what really matters. The most important things are usually the simplest, Lara replied. That's what you forgot, and now you've rediscovered. The sun began to set, coloring the Denver sky with shades of orange and pink. The next day, they would inaugurate another foundation clinic, this time in a rural community near Aspen, a symbolic return to their roots. The life August had built was nothing like what he had planned as a young man, nor what he had envisioned during his decades as a successful businessman. It was infinitely better, full of purpose, true connections, and genuine love. And as he watched the sunset beside the woman he loved, August Sinclair knew with absolute certainty that the greatest charade of his life had led him to the most profound truth, that true healing comes not from hospitals or diagnoses, but from the sincere presence of someone who stays even when everyone else has gone.